Dinosaur Department Store by Lily Murray and Richard Merritt. Eliza Jane was an unusual child. Some called her wilful, some called her wild. She didn't like bedtime or broccoli or rules, nor tidying up, nor going to school. So it didn't come as a great surprise when on her birthday Eliza Jane cried, "Mummy, Daddy, now that I'm 4, I'd like you to buy me a real dinosaur." Her parents weren't keen, it had to be said. They wished she had asked for a rabbit instead. But they swallowed their fears, put on a brave face. "Let's go," said Mummy. "I know just the place." "Hooray, hooray," said Eliza Jane, and off they went on the 10:20 train. They rushed from the station to the grand front door of the one and only Dinosaur Store. They rang the bell, the door opened wide. Eliza Jane stepped boldly inside. They were met by a man in a long velvet cloak who twirled his moustache and smiled as he spoke. "Mr. Magisaurus, here at your service. Welcome, my dears, no need to be nervous. Come with me on my magical tour of the dazzling Dinosaur Department Store." He pulled back the curtains with outrageous flair. Roars and hisses zipped through the air. "So much to see, it'll make your head spin. Are you ready, dear friends? Then let us begin. We have huge ones and scaly ones, dinos with beaks, sweet little fluffy ones, squeak, squeak, squeak. Fang-toothed carnivores grinding their jaws, rip-roaring raptors with sharp slashing claws, honking hadrosaurus playing in herds, tiny feathered theropods squawking like birds, a plesiosaurus feasting on fish. Yikes, Spinosaurus! Give that one a miss. Huge stomping sauropods stretching their necks, bigger than houses, the gentlest of pets. A Marginosaurus with a mighty sail, a Colossus diplodocus whipping his tail. These are Ankylosaurus, armoured little tanks, one called Maud and the others called Frank. A clever fierce Troodon who stays up all night, and Ms. Tyrannosaurus with her bone-crunching bite. Mr. Magisaurus turned to the crowd. He simpered and smirked and looked very proud. "At last we have reached the end of our tour. It's time to choose your own dinosaur." But Eliza Jane had turned to go. "Thank you," she said, "but the answer is no. I did enjoy your wonderful tour, but I no longer want a real dinosaur." Mr. Magisaurus cried out in dismay. "You've wasted my time! Get out of my way!" Eliza Jane's parents were rocked to the core as the storekeeper flung them straight out of the door. "Eliza Jane, are you upset? We thought that you wanted a dinosaur pet." But Eliza Jane just skipped and smiled. "I thought they'd be happier out in the wild."
So today we're going to have a look at sequencing. Now we are specifically considering sequencing as a reading skill, but we are going to start by looking at how it can be used, what it is, and where we might find it in other areas of life before we then try and apply it as a reading skill. We can start by considering maths because we sequence numbers all the time. If I say to you 1, and then ask what comes next, you would say 2, 3, 4, 5. I've sequenced the numbers. I'm counting in ones and I've sequenced the numbers. If I said to you 2, 4, 6, you might say 8, 10, 12. I've sequenced the numbers, but I'm counting in twos. If I said 10, 9, 8, you're not likely to say 72, 75, because after 10, 9, 8, the sequence as it carries on is 7, 6, 5. That's probably the most basic and straightforward way of explaining. So sequence is an order. I am impartial to a lovely cup of tea, but there is a sequence, there is an order for how I make that. Because if I don't boil my water, if I don't get my water hot before I put it in with my tea bag, then it won't brew and I won't have a very nice cup of tea. So there are certain steps. If I'm making toast, then I need to put the grill on first before putting the bread under. There's no point in having the bread under there if the grill's not switched on. or the toaster isn't down. The same way as if I'm making a cake, there is no point in having the eggs still out on the side when the rest of the cake is in the oven. So to sequence is to put things in logical order. Or when it comes to sequencing as a reading tool, sequencing is putting them in the order they were in, which might not necessarily be the order that you believe to be the most logical, but it is the order that they're in. In order to get some practice of this, a great way of doing it would be to use nursery rhymes. If we sing Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So in my nursery rhyme, I've got lots of different things. So I've got the king's horses and the king's men trying to put Humpty Dumpty together. That's an event. That's a thing. I've got Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall, and I've got Humpty Dumpty falling off the wall and breaking. So I have 3 events there, and if I were to sequence my events, then number 1, Humpty Dumpty was sat on the wall. Number 2, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and broke. And number 3, the king's horses and the king's men were trying to put him back together, but couldn't. Okay, what about if we try and sequence a different nursery rhyme? So I'll give you the nursery rhyme first, and then I'll give you the events, and you can tell me the order that they go in. So, hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon, the little dog laughed to see such fun, and the dish ran away with the spoon. Whew. There's a lot of things going on there. So you have got the little dog laughing, the dish running away with the spoon. You have got the cow jumping over the moon. You have got a cat and a fiddle. That'll do. What order would you put them in? Absolutely. Cat and the fiddle come first. You can say it again. It's the same as when we're looking at a book. If we're looking at a book, we can go back in the book to find it. But with a nursery rhyme, we can just say it again. So, hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. Right, okay. So the cow jumping over the moon is number 2. So we've got the cat and the fiddle. We've got the cow jumping over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such fun. And the dish ran away with the spoon. So there's your 4 events in order. And if we're not sure, we can think back. And if we're reading a book, we don't have to think back. We can refer back to the book. We can look back at what it is that happened, and we can put them in the right place. We can work out whether it came before or whether it came after. We're going to do a little bit of this, but we are going to use a book. But I would like to read you the book because we will need it. So I would like to read you the book. I'm going to read The Dinosaur Department Store, and then I'm going to give you a list of events after, and we'll see if we can put them back in order, and we'll use the book to help us. We will use it as a reference. And in which case, if what you've done is watched a video rather than you actually have the physical book, then obviously you can skip back through the video or something, and that would be exactly the same. It's just like me flicking back through the book. You can skip back through the video, you could put something in order. You would get the same result. The Dinosaur Department Store. I love this story. Eliza Jane was an unusual child. Some called her willful, some called her wild. She didn't like bedtime or broccoli or rules, nor tidying up, nor going to school. So it didn't come as a great surprise when on her birthday, Eliza Jane cried, "Mummy, Daddy, now that I'm 4, I'd like you to buy me a real dinosaur." Her parents weren't keen, it had to be said. They wished she had asked for a rabbit instead. But they swallowed their fears, put on a brave face. "Let's go," said Mummy. "I know just the place." "Hooray, hooray," said Eliza Jane, and off they went on the 10:20 train. They rushed from the station to the grand front door of the one and only Dinosaur Store. They rang the bell, the door opened wide. Eliza Jane stepped boldly inside. They were met by a man in a long velvet cloak who twirled his moustache and smiled as he spoke. "Mr. Magisaurus, here at your service. Welcome, my dears. No need to be nervous. Come with me on my magical tour of the dazzling Dinosaur Department Store." He pulled back the curtain with outrageous flair. Roars and hisses zipped through the air. "So much to see, it'll make your head spin. Are you ready, dear friends? Then let us begin. We have huge ones and scaly ones, dinos with beaks, Sweet little fluffy ones. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Fang-toothed carnivores grinding their jaws. Rip-roaring raptors with sharp slashing claws. Honking hadrosaurus playing in herds. Tiny feathered theropods squawking like birds. A plesiosaurus feasting on fish. Yikes, Spinosaurus. Give that one a miss. Huge stomping sauropods stretching their necks bigger than houses. The gentlest of pets. A Marginosaurus with her mighty tail. A colossal Diplodocus whipping his tail. These are Ankylosaurus, armoured like tanks. One called Maud and the others called Frank. Clever fierce Trudon who stays up all night. And Miss Tyrannosaurus with her bone-crunching bite. Mr. Magosaurus turned to the crowd. He simpered and smirked and looked very proud. At last we have reached the end of our tour. It's time for you to choose your own dinosaur. But Eliza Jane had turned to go. Thank you, she said, but the answer is no. I did enjoy your wonderful tour, but I no longer want a real dinosaur. Mr. Magosaurus cried out in dismay. You've wasted my time. Get out of my way. Eliza Jane's parents were rocked to the core as the storekeeper flung them straight out of the door. Eliza Jane, are you upset? We thought you wanted a dinosaur pet. But Eliza Jane just skipped and smiled. I thought they'd be happier out in the wild. What a great story. And if you would like to see the story with the pictures as well, then I did record that as a different video, so you could go and have a watch of that. If you're a visual learner, then that may well help you to recall the order of the events, but that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to give you six events that happened in the story, and we are going to try and put them together. Let's have a look at what those 6 events are. Okay, so let's have a look at those 6 different events that are there. So we've got a very angry Mr. Magosaurus who's shouting at them, saying that they wasted their time. We've also got a very happy Mr. Magosaurus who's welcoming Eliza Jane to the dinosaur department store. We've got the little Ankylosaurus, armoured little tanks, Maud and Frank. And we've got the dinosaurs leaving the store with Mum and Dad and Eliza Jane. And we've got rip-roaring raptors with their sharp slashing claws. And we've got Eliza Jane on her bed declaring to everybody, telling everybody that she would like a real dinosaur for her birthday. Now, when it comes to putting these in order, we can start by finding the one that's at the beginning and the one at the end, or like the closest to the beginning and the closest to the end, and we can put them at either end of our timeline. So for me, I know that Eliza Jane started the story by telling everybody that she would like a real dinosaur for her birthday. So I can label that picture number 1. And I remember that the dinosaurs all leaving the department store was right at the very end, so I can label that one number 6. If I had the pictures, I could cut them out and I could put them in order. I could rearrange them, or if I was writing about them, then I could write where they were. But if I was going to number them, Eliza Jane on her bed would be number 1, and the dinosaurs leaving would be number 6. That was the end. I can check all of this using my book, but I do know certain parts of it, so I can use those, that's fine. Now, there are 2 Mr. Magosauruses there. There's a very happy one where he was welcoming everybody to come and see the dinosaurs, and there's a very angry one where he said that they wasted his time and he threw them out. Now, I know that he must have thrown them out right at the end of the story, so I am going to put the angry Mr. Magosaurus as number 5, and I will check and make sure, and if it isn't, then I can always change it, but I think that it's number 5 because it happened right at the end of the story. In the same way that they couldn't logically have met the dinosaurs, which are the other 2 pictures, without having met Mr. Magosaurus and him welcoming them into the department store. So I am going to put the happy Mr. Magosaurus as number 2. Now I'm left with 2 more pictures, and I'm none the wiser as to which order these 2 dinosaurs appear in the story. So I'm going to use the book, but I don't need to start at the beginning and read the whole thing because, well, they're dinosaurs, so I know they're at the dinosaur department store. So I can skip through to the bit where the dinosaur department store is there. There we go, look. There is Mr. Magosaurus, nice and happy. He's just before the dinosaurs, so he was number 2. And then he's welcoming them in. And then if I keep flicking through, look, here, that's one of my pictures. That's the rip-roaring raptors. So I think they must be number 3, but let's just keep going and make sure that I haven't missed those little ankylosauruses, because you never know. I might have missed them. Oh, no, I didn't. There they are. Look, there's Maud and Frank, and they came after the rip-roaring raptors. So they are number 4. So we had Eliza Jane on her bed, number 1. It was right at the beginning of the story. Then they met Mr. Magosaurus. Then they met the rip-roaring raptors. Then they met the Ankylosaurus. Then Mr. Magosaurus was very angry. And then the dinosaurs left with Mum and Dad and Eliza Jane. What I didn't do was give you a recap of the story. There were big bits missing. So it wouldn't be a very good retell of the story. But what I did do was order the events that I was given. So sequencing is all about putting things in the right order. And I think you did a super job. So whatever you're doing with the rest of your day, have a great one. Well done. Hi. So today we are going to have a look at counting in 5s. We will do some filling in the missing numbers, we will do some call and response, and we'll do some problem solving and some reasoning. You may well want something to write with and something to write on, particularly if you are a visual learner and you prefer to see things. That might be useful for spotting patterns. So if you need to go and find something, then pause the video, go grab it, and then come back. Okay, let's get started then by practicing counting in 5s. We'll start at 0 and we will count all the way up to 50 for now. That's quite a long way. I'm going to use my hands because my hands have 5 fingers on and that's useful for me. You can do that if you want, but you don't necessarily have to. A bit of movement is always good because movement helps things come better into our brains. It helps us to learn better. Starting at 0, let's go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Let's try again, but let's see if we can get all the way to 100. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. Well done. If that's tricky, then by all means, skip back a bit and have another go. Let's have a look at what those numbers are and see if we can identify a pattern that might help us to make it easier if it's not. So if you've got you something to write with and you something to write on, let's start at 5 and let's write down the numbers. We will just go to 50. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Okay, let's have a look at the numbers that we wrote. And in case you didn't write them, I wrote them for you. So we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. What do we notice about the last digit in each number? So if it's a 2-digit number, then it's the last one. But obviously for that first number, it is just the digit that's there. I've underlined them just to make it a little bit easier. What do we notice about the numbers that are underlined? Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. They either end in a 5 or they end in a 0. So if a number is a multiple of 5, if it shares equally into 5, so eventually if we were counting in 5s, we would get to it, it has to end in either a 5 or a 0. And here's the maths behind why. It's silly, really. It must end in a 5 or a 0 because 5 and 5 make 10. It's breaking the next tens number every time. So the tens number changes, but there's only one number that has the 5 that comes after it. So here we had 5, and then 5 and 5 make 10. Well, 5 more than 10 is 15. But then if I add 5 more to that, 5 and 5 make 10, so that's 10 and then 10 more, so that's 20. So it's really handy to remember that. It also makes it really easy to spot if a number is a multiple of 5, if it is in the 5 times tables, if we would get to it eventually by counting in 5s. So let's play a game. To start with, I'll give you some numbers and I'll show you them, and then I'll say some numbers and either you can write them down or you can just have a think about it. But would I get to this number if I was counting in 5s? Yes, absolutely, because it ends in a 5. Would I get to this number? No, I absolutely wouldn't. The number is 81. It doesn't end in a 0 or a 5. It's not a tens number and it doesn't end in a 5. So I would never get to it counting in 5s. What about this then? Would I ever get to this number? Yes, it ends in a 5. So even when we get into 3-digit numbers, even when we get into hundreds, tens and units numbers, it's still that last one. It's still the ones number that is the one that tells us whether or not it would be a count by 5's number. And as long as that is a 5 or a 0, then yes, it absolutely would. So let's have a go. Can you either write or can you see if you can identify it without? But the number 95, yes or no? 16. 71. 60. As long as you wrote 60, then you are absolutely spot on there. 20. 35. 195. Exactly. It takes a long time to get to 195 if we were counting on in 5s, but we absolutely could. Okay, I think that you 100% get the hang of that. We can use counting in 5s in everyday life. So before we do any problem solving, let's just make a link to the clock. Because I can use my counting in 5s. I have to use my counting in 5s if I'm telling the time on the clock, because each of these sections is worth 5 minutes. So I have one lot of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now in digital time, I would carry on 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So if it was a digital clock, if it was almost only numbers, then I would need to be able to count all the way up to 11 lots of 5. But if it's not, then I don't actually use, I wouldn't say it was 35 minutes past. But if it was digital, then that is exactly what I would use. But this is useful because this can help us to think about getting those multiplication facts to be a little bit speedy. So one lot of 5 is 5. 4 lots of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. 6 lots of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So if I had a clock, I could use it certainly to help to practice identifying which ones were which, and that might help me to get a bit speedier with knowing which of my multiplication facts for the 5 times tables linked to which number. Being able to count in 5s is great, but being able to work out how many lots of 5 are in something is much more useful. So let's do a little bit of that. So if we wanted to work out 3 lots of 5, now if we are writing it down, we need this sign here, and this sign means times or multiply or lots of. And if we want to do 3 lots of 5, all we have to do is find 3 and then use them to help us count in 5. So 5, 10, 15. So 3 lots of 5, 15. So let's do the same for a few more. Let's see if we can do 7 lots of 5. Now there are 2 ways that you could do this. You can still do it with your fingers because you do have 7, or you could draw 7 of something and then you could count along them. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. You could do it that way. Either way is absolutely fine and will get you to the same answer. What about 9 lots of 5? Can you write it down as a number sentence? Can you write 9 times 5? Yeah? And then let's have a go at doing it. So there's 9. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Brilliant. Let's see if we can do a bit of problem solving. So first of all, tell me what the missing numbers are. I will give you a minute to have a little look. What are the missing numbers and how do you know? This one is 10. Either because it's 5 less than this or because it's 5 more than this, either or. And this one? Yeah, 25, because 20 is there. Brilliant. Okay, what about this? Can you tell me why this is wrong? You don't need to know the answer in order to be able to tell me why it is wrong. Think about all that we've talked about and all that we know. 4 lots of 5 equal 21. I am wrong, but how? Let me give you a clue if you're not there yet. Why can that not be right? Because this is really important, and this is how we get to be good at spotting our mistakes, because we can apply logic and we can apply rules that we know to check our work without just going, oh yeah, I did that. So in this case, I cannot be right because my answer is 21. And for a 5s number, for a counting in 5s number, they don't end in 1s. They either end in 5 or they end in 0. What about if I did... How quick can you spot it? Yeah, absolutely, spot on. My mistake is here because 5 numbers, if I multiply them by 5, which I am here, then it cannot end in a 7. It must end in a 5 or a 0. See if you can explain why this is wrong for me. It's a different reason. That's supposed to be a 5. Okay. So this is the bit here that's wrong, if you haven't spotted it already. Why is it wrong? Yeah. It's got nothing to do with it not being a 5s number. It absolutely is a 5s number. However, that number is 50 and 3 lots of 5, 5, 10, 15. So a teen number starts with a 1 and a T number ends in a 0. So 15 was the answer that we needed there. So if we get rid of 50 and we put in 15, that is what that one should have looked like. I think you've done some really great counting in 5s today. You can have a practice. You could do it while you were skipping or jumping or running. You could count in 5s while you were doing that. Whatever you do with your day, have a great one. Well done. Hi, so today we are going to do a bit of an experiment. We are going to do some prediction, but then we'll do some observations. We'll see if we can work out what's happening, and then we will run a little bit of an investigation to see whether or not we can do a little test. We're going to make some lava lamps today, just super basic ones. So if you would like to join in and you have the things to hand, then you can, but you absolutely don't need to. I'm going to do it all here and we'll explain everything. All you need though, if you desperately do, or all I am going to use today is a glass. You need to be able to see through it. You'll see that there's some white around the front of mine. There is a little picture on it, which isn't ideal. I didn't have an all clear one. You need some water. I'm going to use a tiny bit of food colouring just so that you can see it a bit better. And then we need some oil and some salt. So I'm going to start by putting some water into the glass. So I'm not going to fill it all the way to the top because I don't need to. Just put that safe. And then I just need to put the tiniest amount of food colouring in. It's just so that we can see what's going on a bit better. So let's see what that looks like. Just give that a little mix. I think that looks fairly green. Maybe a tiny bit more, but no more than a tiny bit more. Right, here we go. So we'll let that have a good old mix. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some oil. Now, prediction number one is, what do you think will happen to that oil when I add it in? Do you know anything about oil and water? Do you think the oil and water mix? Oil and water do not mix. So then what we have to consider is which is heavier and which is lighter. Now we can make a prediction. It's 50-50 whether we will be right or whether we will be wrong in this case, because it will either be lighter or it will be heavier. What do you think though? I'll pour it in, but do you think that we will be heavier or do you think that we will be lighter? If it's lighter, it will sit on top, and if it is heavier, it will sink to the bottom. Oh, now I need a fair bit of oil. Can you see what's happening there? I will go and fill it better. But can you see what's happened there on the top of the water? Yeah, there's like globules of oil. So the oil is sat on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go and get a better pouring oil, because that didn't really work. So I'm going to get a better pouring oil because I need to make like a surface on the top. So I need to put enough oil in to make like a surface on the top. At the minute it's in globules, so you can see the bits on the top, kind of like floating little puddles. Okay, there we go, that's better. I used a slightly different oil as well, so it's slightly coloured, just because that makes it a bit easier to see, but it doesn't actually change it. But you can see that there's a layer at the top here that is oil, and there is a layer at the bottom here that is our green water. So now what I intend to do is to add some salt, and I wonder what will happen. What do you think might happen? When we added the oil just sat on top. So do you think that the salt is heavier or lighter than the things that are already in there? Do you think that the salt will sink to the bottom? Do you think it will float on top? What do you think? I think that it must, this tub here feels quite heavy. So I think that the salt must be more dense, it must be heavier than anything that's already in there. So I think that the salt is going to sink to the bottom. Whether or not that's all that happens, I'm not sure, but let's see. Did you see it? Oh, but look. I'm going to change the angle of the camera and do a bit more, because what has happened is absolutely fascinating. But I don't think you can see it from there. I'm going to change the angle of the camera. I'm going to do a bit more close up so that you can see exactly what is going on in the glass. Right, okay, so ignore the fact that you can't see my face at all, and let's have a look. So if I put in like a decent little amount, it sinks to the bottom, but then can you see that? Look, it sends little shoots of oil back to the surface. That's so cool. So it does pull it down, but then it sends them right back up to the surface. I wonder why. Can you think of anything that you know about salt or water or oil? That's so cool. I could watch that all day. I need to stop, otherwise I will have no salt left for my cooking. But this is so cool with the little bubbles that keep shooting back up. I love that. I think that's great. I wonder why it happens though. So what are our ideas in terms of why it might happen? Because it's still going on down there, look. Obviously the salt is heavier, so the salt is always going to sink to the bottom, but it has to go through this layer of fat because there's a layer of fat sat at the top, layer of oil. That oil wants to be at the top because it's lighter, so it's trying to get up because the salt is heavier and pulls it down. But because the oil is buoyant, because it's light and floaty, that wants to get to the top. And so when it gets to the bottom, it leaves the salt down here, and the salt will eventually dissolve because that's what happens to salt. And the oil obviously then comes back to the top, to the surface. Now my question is, at the minute I can see quite a lot of salt sitting at the bottom, and there are little bits of oil floating back to the surface. It is a bit lavary, but I can still see the salt there. So I feel like it's quite a slow process. And my question to you is there a way that we could speed up the process? Do we think that we could change something and it would make the oil come back to the surface quicker? It would make the salt dissolve quicker, and therefore the globules of oil come back to the surface. And our lava lamp dance more. I wonder what we could do. So the things that we have the glass that it's in, so we could keep that the same, or we could change that. Would that make a difference to the way that it worked as a lava lamp? There's the water that's in it. Now, I guess in theory, there are lots of things that you could change there. You could change the amount of water that we've got, or you could change the type of water that we've got. So you could change the temperature of the water, or we could have fizzy water rather than still water. There's the oil that's in there. We could have different oil. We could have more, less. I don't know if any of those would make a difference. I guess this is like fine salt. So they also do a coarse version of salt. They do one that's like bigger pieces. Maybe that would make a difference. Maybe it wouldn't. Or there's table salt, which is actually finer than that one, so maybe that would make a difference. There is obviously the food colouring that's in there too. Does the food colouring have an impact on what's actually going on inside the glass? In the same way as does the glass actually have an impact on what's going on inside the glass? We could consider changing lots of different things, but if we are trying to keep a fair test, then we can only change one thing at a time. That's not to say that we couldn't do multiple experiments and we couldn't try it in a different glass with a different amount of water, with a different type of water, and with a different colour food colouring. We could do 4 different experiments and we could compare them and see whether or not any of those things changed the way that the lava lamp worked. But if my thing was about how we get rid of the salt that's in the bottoms, whether or not that makes a difference, then I don't think changing the glass will make a difference. Changing the food colouring can't make a difference because that's just making it a different colour. It doesn't do anything other than that. I don't think that changing the oil will make a difference. And I actually quite like the fact that you can see this one. But I do know about salt that it works in the same way as sugar. So a way of getting it to dissolve faster is to have it in, you guessed it, to have it in hot water, to have it in warmer water. I'm using glass, so I'm not going to use hot water because I don't want to shatter the glass, but I think that if we try it using warm water, we might be able to see the difference. And the beauty of that is that we can actually have both of them side by side. So we can keep this one and we can use it, and we can have the warm one next to it, and we can use them at the same time, and then hopefully we'll be able to see whether or not there is a difference between the two. Let's give it a go. Okay, so I'm back. I've got some warm water. I boiled the kettle, but then I allowed it to cool a little bit so it's not too hot. In the name of fair science, we'll make sure we get an even amount, and I'm very glad that I put a towel down now for the experiment. I knew I would need it. I'm a mucky pup. Okay, and then we just want a few drops of food colouring like we had last time. And I'll use the same colour as well, just for fairness. There we go. And then we are going to put that layer of oil over the top. I love how that happens. I just think it's so satisfying. Okay, that, or maybe I think there's a little bit more in the other one. There we go. In the name of science, we'll make it as fair as we possibly can. So this one is our cold one that we had on the go before, and this one has warm water in. Now, what we are predicting might happen is that this might have a quicker reaction than this, because the salt should dissolve quicker in the warmer water than it does in the cold water. Let's give it a go and find out. So let's put a bit in this side to start with. I still think it makes such a cute little bubble, bubble, bubble sort of reaction there. Oh, wow. Look at that one go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it definitely has a much speedier reaction than the other one. I'm going to change the camera angle so that you can see them a little bit better, but I definitely think that this has a much speedier reaction than this one. Okay, so there you can see them side by side. You can still see loads of, this is salt at the bottom of this glass here. You still see loads of salt in there. So I'll start by putting some in here and we can see the reaction of that up close. So it does come up and it's still going. And all of that oil will resurface, but then just watch this. Just watch how quick that reaction is. That's so cool. They're just up and up and up. Yeah. Definitely going to be without salt because that is just fascinating to watch. And this one's still coming, there's still little bits from that first time that we did it. It is all trying to resurface, but this one is a much speedier reaction time for sure. And I would imagine that as this one cools down, this process will slow down and it will be more akin to this one. Well, I don't know about you, but I had a really good time doing that. I thought it was really interesting to see how that science worked and how the heavier things were sinking and then they were trying to float back to the surface because the oil was so buoyant, and also that you could use something that you knew as previous knowledge, like salt dissolves in hot water better than it does in cold water, to test whether or not I could speed up that reaction. Now, if I wanted to, I could try and speed up that reaction further by using even hotter water, because I did boil the kettle, but I let it cool down a bit. So I could try and boil it and use it straight as I boiled it. The difficulty for me is that these glasses aren't strong enough for that and they definitely break. So there is a slight issue in fairness there, because I would have to use something else. And obviously my mug is no good because I can't see in the side of it. Really interesting experiment, great to work on fair testing and how we keep that fair. Maybe you could do an experiment of your own. Remember, if you want to keep it a fair experiment, a fair test, then you need to only change one thing at a time. Like we changed the temperature of our water in this experiment. Whatever you do, have a great day.
Hello Angel students. In today's lesson, I would like to talk to you about self-care. In our last lesson, we spoke about self-love, and self-care comes behind self-love very, very, very closely, but they are different. With self-love, it was about finding the things within yourself, about yourself, that you love. With self-care, it is looking after those things by looking after yourself. And when we think about self-care, we might automatically think that self-care is just something adults do. Self-care is just something my parents do or the older members of my family do, but self-care is for everyone. If you start practicing self-care from a young age, you will be flying with self-care once you become an adult. Always be true, always be honest about how you're feeling. And how you feel could be how your mood is, whether you're feeling happy and content or sad or low or upset, to feeling excited and joyful and grateful, as well as how you feel within your body, how you feel physically. Our minds and bodies are connected, so it is important to keep your body and your mind strong. Healthy mind, healthy body. healthy body, healthy mind. And some of the best ways to self-care are to drink lots of water and stay hydrated, to eat well, and to get lots of rest. But as the video goes on, I will give you more information and some tips on how to self-care. So I'd like to ask, do you listen to your body? Listen to your body? What does that mean? How do you listen to your body? Well, do you listen to your body? And what I mean by that is when you need to go to the toilet, for instance. Your body is telling you you need to go to the toilet. When you're tired, your body is telling you it's time to get some rest. So that is what I mean by do you listen to your body? So when you know that it's time to go to sleep, do you listen to your body and go to sleep and get some rest as long as you're in a place that is safe and well for you to do so? Some ways that we can self-care are brushing our teeth on a regular basis, washing our hands when we're supposed to, getting enough rest, as I mentioned before, and also keeping our space clean and tidy. This helps to keep our mind nice and organized as well. When your room and your space is nice and clean and tidy, it usually helps you to think clearly as well. How we eat and what we eat is also a part of self-care. Are we eating healthy foods? Are we eating foods that help to nourish our minds and bodies? Keeping active and moving our bodies is extremely important. We need to keep our bodies active so we can stay fit, so that we can move about. Gets your heart rate going, which is good for pumping the blood all around our body so that the organs can get everything that they need, all the oxygen pumped around the body, so that everything works in the way that it's supposed to. You can do this sometimes when you're out in the playground maybe, or you can ask one of your parents to put something on YouTube that can help you to keep your body moving, that you can follow, and it will help and guide and give you instructions in how to do that. Or maybe when you play certain sports, that will allow you to get your body moving. So when it comes to self-care, you can use things like post-it notes and put them around your room to remind you of certain things that you should do, and that would be very helpful for you to do to keep your self-care at the top of its game. If you have a particularly special or big day, it always helps to sort out whatever you need from the day before, whether it be packing your bag, a packed lunch, or what you're going to wear. That is something that you can do for self-care because it takes the pressure off of you maybe having to rush right before you're supposed to go. So in being organized, that's an excellent practice of self-care. Helping with cooking is also an excellent way to self-care. Not only does it teach you how to cook and feed yourself, but it also helps you to understand just what you're eating, what is excellent, great, nutritious and healthy for your body, and the things that aren't. Do you have any particular healthy snacks or healthy dinners that you like to eat? If you could pick two, what would they be? Personally, I like fruits and vegetables. I love fruits. If I had to pick between one of the two, I would pick fruits. There are many foods that are good for us that we should have more of, such as fruits and vegetables. And then there are some that maybe we should have just sometimes, which are ones that have more sugar or even things like fizzy drinks. And when eating, we should try to eat a rainbow. What do I mean by eat a rainbow? That means when you have different types of foods with different colours, which means you're getting different types of vitamins and nutrients all on one plate. And of course, with food comes drink. So what better to drink than water? I would encourage you to drink a good amount of water, maybe 3 to 4 glasses to begin with if you're not used to drinking water already. But water is extremely important. Nothing will make you feel more hydrated than some water. And if, like many people, you find it difficult to just drink water by itself, maybe see if you can squeeze a bit of lemon in there to give it a little bit of a flavour. And when it comes to self-care, as with many things that we've spoken about in our lessons, our thoughts are extremely important. Our thoughts are part of our habits, and our habits contribute to just how well we take care of ourselves. So, in keeping our thoughts positive, happy, keeping our thoughts with what we want, how we want things, who we want to become, rather than all those things we don't want and we don't like and we don't choose to become. We just keep it as, I like this, I love that, I enjoy this makes me happy. Those are the types of thoughts to be in a good habit of having, and they will contribute and make your self-care so much more fun. Sleep is another extremely important form of self-care. So when you know it's time for bed, when you've been told it's time for bed, please do listen, because that's when your body gets to restore and repair. That's when your mind gets to have a rest. And that's your body's time to continue looking after you whilst you rest. It is extremely important. In our sleep, our body does things that we couldn't imagine. It looks after you in ways that if it were left up to us, we might forget to do some of those things. So when it's time to rest, do. It helps you grow in every single way, not just in your height. And remember that you deserve to be happy and healthy. That's the whole point of self-care, is that you deserve to be cared for. But in deserving that, you have your part to play too. So when you choose to do certain things for your self-care, be sure to ask yourself if this is something that I am enjoying. Is this something that is contributing to my self-care because it makes me feel even better than I did before? There are lots of ways to practice self-care. You can practice self-care by getting creative, by drawing, by colouring in. These things contribute to self-care because it's all about how it makes you feel. You may want to try painting, find ways to relax. You might want to go in a corner and read a book or listen to some music. All of these things contribute to your self-care because they make you feel good, because they make you feel like you are looking after yourself in the best way possible. And that's all you can ask of yourself when taking care of yourself, is that you're doing the best you possibly can in the ways that you can, with what you have available to you, and in ways that make you feel even better about yourself. So you can get into your imagination. Maybe you could write a story. You could even write yourself into that story as a character and really get those creative and imaginative juices flowing. It will also probably show you some skills that you have. You can use that for so many things. You could write a letter to yourself about things you'd like to do, places you'd like to go, experiences that you would like to have. If you're a dancer or a gymnast, or you play a musical instrument, maybe you could put a performance on for those that you love so you can show them what you've been doing. This will build your confidence, your self-esteem, and it's an extra reason for you to get a bit more practice in front of other people. You could ask your family if you can have a games night where you can share stories and experiences, get the love flowing, make some healthy snacks, get some water, and enjoy each other's time. The main thing when practicing self-care is that you do the things that are essential and the things that you really must do, like personal hygiene, brushing your teeth, keeping your hands clean, keeping your room tidy, all of those kind of things, and a lot of the things that you choose that are fun, that make you happy, that bring you joy. That is all self-love. And remember, in those habits, it's what we think about the most that contributes to how we feel. So remember, angel students, keep your thoughts positive, be in the habit of healthy thinking, and look after yourselves as you go forward and practice your self-care. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye, angel students.
Hi everybody, Angel School. Welcome. We're gonna learn my new movement today, my new Kung Fu movement. So start with the basic breathing technique first and warm up the joints. Whole body relax, arms straight, fingers straight. Turn your hands to your field stretching. Breathing in, collecting all the good energy into your body. Breathing out, relax your shoulders, elbow, hand push all the way down. Whole body relax. Start with 1 foot wide. Here you are. Cross your fingers. Exercise your wrists and ankles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Exercise your knee joints. Help your knee circulation. Slightly bend your knees. All the way down. 1. Massage your knee joints. 2, 3. Okay, change. 1, 2, 3. Change. 1, 2, 3. Keep your foot point straight and relax your hips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And keep your elbow up. Hands reach out far as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And one hand's lower, one hand's higher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, slightly bend your knees. For your elbow look back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Arm straight. Relax your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Shoulders down, head up. If you feel the neck muscle stretching, that's good. Slowly. 1, 2, 3. Change. 1, 2, 3. Rolling your shoulders, full circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And relax your back 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Okay, good. Now we're gonna do quick exercise for the upper body strength and leg strength. Then we do the new movement. First, we're gonna do some push-up first. So you can keep your hands on the floor. Keep your arms straight. 1, all the way down, all the way up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Now let's do basic punch together. Start with 2 foot points. Keep your foot point straight. Clench your face, elbow back. 1. Face reach forward much as you can, like a bow and arrows. 2. Clench your face, breathing in. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Little bit power, exactly same. 1, elbow and punch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Inhale and exhale. Now let's do one exercise to build up your leg strength. So slightly bend your knees, stretch your back all the way down. When you stand up, you stretch front of your body, yeah, like a yin yang. Let's do 10 times. 1, stretch your back. 2, stretch front of your body. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. This one's just good. Stretch your back, front of your body, and build up strength on your leg. So now we're going to do first Kung Fu stance. Normal 3.5 foot wide. 1, 3.5. Foot point straight. And clench your face. And bend your knees. Yeah. Then push your knee up. Back straight, breathing in. And turn your body, breathing out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So this is the first Kung Fu stance, 马步. Second one, 弓步. Front leg bend, back leg straight. 1. When you feel stretch, focus on your breathing. 2. Use your breathing to stretch. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Change. One leg bent, one leg straight. When you feel stretch, focus on your breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very good. Relax your leg. So the new movement for today is a gumbo punch, yeah? So basically, you start with marble and change to gumbo. Yeah? So you bend your knees, foot point forward, and change, back leg straight. But this time, a little bit different. Not just block and punch like this. This time you cross your hands. Yeah? So the hands like this, then you punch. Basically, when you cross, like you block and punch. Yeah? So block over your shoulders, then punch. Hands like this. Block and punch. Block and then punch. Still marble, change to gumbo. Okay. Follow me and let's practice 10 times. So, face on your waist, marble, bend your knees, point straight. In the beginning, you don't have to go too low, yeah? But when you get a little bit better in the future, you should bend your knees so you can put the bottle of water on your leg, not falling down, yeah? So that's the Kung Fu stance. But of course, in the beginning, you don't have to go too low. Okay, follow me. Marble, bend your knees. And one hand inside. If you're going left, your left hand, left foot inside. Right hand block. Left hand punch. If you're going right, your right hand inside, left hand block, and right hand punch. Okay, let's do it 10 times. Ready? Right hand block, punch to the left. 1. Then left hand block, punch to the right. 3. Block. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Okay. Inhale and exhale. So same with we did before, similar, just slightly different technique. This time your one hand block, one hand punch. One hand block, one hand punch. But still same, marble, change to gumbo. Okay, so let's last breathing exercise. Breathing in, like a healing power to repair your body. Breathing out, whole body relax. Okay, well done.
Please like and subscribe so you can get more and more lessons.